Welcome. I am Darth Vadad. Join me as I remember things I loved when I was younger and still love today. In Episode 5 of Darth Vadad Remembers, I took a look back at the Jedi Master's Quizbook by Rusty Miller. As an 11-year-old anxiously awaiting the final film in the original Star Wars trilogy, the trivia questions and answers I read in that little paperback provided me with many hours of nerdy fun. I learned a great many things from the Quizbook. In this episode, I'll be focusing on some of the information that struck me as particularly interesting upon rereading the book, either because some information has changed since its publication, or due to personal memories I have about the various subjects. From the Star Wars questions section, question 6 asks, what was Leia's starship called at the beginning of Star Wars? The answer listed was Blockade Runner, but later sources have identified that particular CR-90 Corvette as the Tantive 4. Question 8 wonders, what was the name of the freighter that Biggs Darklighter served on after graduating from the Academy? While sometimes referred to as an Imperial frigate rather than a freighter, the ship is still known as the Rand Ecliptic. Have you ever wanted to know what the two sons of Tatooine were called? The answer to question 23 reveals the names were not especially creative. Tattoo 1 and Tattoo 2. Question 100 tells us the name of Leia's father was Bail Antilles. This was from an early version of the Star Wars script and was later changed to Bail Organa. The Tantive 4's Captain Antilles and a different Bail Antilles, created for the prequel films, have been said to be relatives of Leia's adoptive father. As I read through questions on The Empire Strikes Back, numbers 167 and 168 refreshed my memory of the Hoth base's surgical droid 21B and his assistant FX7. I remember having these action figures, and I recently built a Lego set of the Hoth medical chamber that includes both droids. At the time of the original movies, when Rusty Miller came up with question 177, the Rebel vehicles used by Luke, Wedge, and others to combat the AT-AT walkers were called snow speeders. We now know the T-47 air speeders were not specifically built for such a harsh climate, but were instead adapted for use in the extreme cold. Does anyone know what root leaf is? According to question 186, it was what Yoda cooked into a stew for Luke. The first time I saw a two-legged walker was probably in a toy commercial, since Kenner shipped them to stores long before Return of the Jedi hit theaters. That might explain why question 254 in the book asked what they were called. But early versions of the Scout Walkers from the Empire Strikes Back sketchbook included both two-man and one-man walkers. More recently, the animated Star Wars Rebels series featured the one-man walker design. What kind of creature is a tauntaun? If question 257 is to be believed, it was a snow lizard native to Hoth. Sources still call tauntauns lizards, but the furry cross between a ram and a dinosaur always looked more like a mammal to me. After first encountering Yoda, could anyone have guessed that his walking stick was anything more than a stray branch he'd repurposed? Question 264 revealed that it was called a gimmer stick, which was later purported to secrete healing or life-sustaining juices. Rusty Miller was apparently not above teasing his readers with a trick question, such as number 271. How did Admiral Piet die? Answer: he didn't. Considering how many other officers the promoted captain saw Darth Vader kill, Piet was one of the few lucky ones. Moving on to a section of the book on both films, in question 309 we learned that droid eyes are called photoreceptors, while question 320 told us that R2-D2 had just one photoreceptor. Who said, "I have a bad feeling about this," and when? According to question 326, it happened 3 times in the first 2 movies. Luke said it when the Millennium Falcon approached the Death Star, Han when the walls of the trash compactor started moving, and Leia when she was walking around the inside of the space slug. To be precise, of these instances, only Leia's quote is worded exactly that way. Many variations of the phrase have been uttered throughout Star Wars history. The first of the book's tough trivia questions was number 329. What creature did Ben fend off from Luke in the cantina? Though unnamed in the film, the original Kenner toys of the character were dubbed Snaggletooth, but he's now known as Zutton. To those who only ever saw the films, question 357 wasn't fair, asking the name of the enemy force in the 1979 novel Han Solo at Star's End. They were known as the Corporate Sector Authority, or CSA. Question 364 revealed an interesting on-location fact. It turns out that the rebel soldiers manning ground emplacements on Hoth were played by members of the Norwegian Red Cross rescue skiers. Finally, from the behind-the-scenes section, question 378 was an enticing tidbit for anyone who wasn't quite as tuned in to the latest Star Wars news at the time. It told readers that the third installment of the Star Wars saga would be called Revenge of the Jedi. Though George Lucas had initially come up with the Return of the Jedi title, it was changed to Revenge long enough to appear in a variety of promotional materials and packaging for the toys. It was ultimately changed back just in time for the film's release. Thanks for joining me on this deeper dive into the Jedi Master's Quizbook. Rusty Miller never penned a Return of the Jedi edition of the book, and has mostly stayed out of the public eye since 1983. But back then he was something of a hero to many kids like me. As C-3PO once said, he's quite clever, you know, for a human being. If you enjoyed this trip down memory lane, tap the like button and subscribe for more Darth Vadad videos, or consider joining my Patreon page at www.patreon.com/DarthVadad. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.